Welcome to the Verdict Zone, where we dissect the moments people take justice and morality into their own hands. Today, we're delving into a story of betrayal, financial warfare, and the exploitation of international borders. We call this case the Financial Vanish. Imagine this: a decades-long marriage, a family built, a life shared. Then, one devastating discovery shatters it all. Our subject today, a high-earning finance professional, found out his wife, the mother of his children, was having an affair. The marriage crumbled, and the divorce proceedings began. What followed was a court order he saw not as justice, but as a reward for disloyalty. The settlement was substantial: half of their marital investments and 2 decades of spousal support. For him, this wasn't just a financial loss. It was an unbearable insult. Fueled by a sense of profound injustice, he decided to fight back, not in the courtroom, but on the global stage. He saw the legal system as failing to recognize the moral bankruptcy of his wife's actions. So, he took matters into his own hands. His counterstrike was meticulous, calculated, and ultimately, devastatingly effective. He decided that if the law wouldn't deliver what he considered true justice, he would create his own. This wasn't just about protecting his wealth. It was about sending a message. This man had spent over 20 years as the primary breadwinner, building a fortune while his wife managed the household and raised their children. He acknowledged her contributions to the family, but the affair erased any sense of shared future or mutual obligation in his mind. The court's ruling, which aimed to divide the fruits of their long partnership, felt to him like an endorsement of her betrayal. He believed she had unilaterally broken the foundational contract of their marriage, and therefore, forfeited her right to its financial benefits. So, what did he do? He executed a plan that leveraged his financial expertise and his dual citizenship. He systematically began moving his assets, liquidating investments, and transferring funds out of the United States. His destination: his home country, a nation with different legal frameworks and, crucially, no reciprocal enforcement agreement with the U.S. for this type of civil judgment. By relocating himself and his wealth, he placed everything beyond the reach of American courts. One day, the spousal support payments simply stopped. The court order, so powerful on paper, became worthless in practice. He had effectively vanished from his financial obligations, leaving his ex-wife with a legal document that was unenforceable. The result was a shocking reversal of fortune. The woman, who was awarded a significant settlement, meant to provide for her future after decades as a stay-at-home parent, was left with a fraction of what was promised. The legal system, designed to ensure a fair division of marital property, was rendered powerless by one man's strategic use of international borders. This case is a tangled web of legal loopholes and moral outrage. From his perspective, he wasn't a deadbeat. He was a man who refused to fund the life of the person who had betrayed him. He argued that her actions dissolved any moral duty he had to support her post-marriage. To him, the court was asking him to pay for his own humiliation, to subsidize her new life, a life built on the ruins of their family. His actions, in his eyes, were not a circumvention of justice, but a restoration of it. He felt the law failed to account for the emotional and moral devastation of infidelity, treating it as a no-fault transaction when, for him, it was a profound breach of trust that invalidated the entire partnership. But what about her? Let's look at the other side of this financial war. For over 20 years, she performed the unpaid labor of managing a home and raising children. This domestic contribution enabled him to focus on his career and amass the wealth they both expected to share in their later years. The legal concept of marital property exists precisely to recognize this non-monetary contribution. Her work was essential to the family's success, a fact he even admits. When he cut off the funds, he didn't just leave her without spousal support. He potentially erased her entire retirement plan. After decades out of the workforce, re-entering at her age would be incredibly challenging. The skills she had might be outdated, and the job market can be unforgiving. The settlement was her financial safety net, her share of the life they built together. Without it, she faces a future of financial instability. All because her ex-husband decided to act as judge, jury, and executioner. Was his act a justifiable counterpunch, or a cruel form of vengeance that left the mother of his children destitute? To help us untangle this, let's bring in some expert perspectives. A family law attorney specializing in international cases would point out that while his actions are legally complex, they aren't necessarily illegal in his new country of residence. Enforcing a U.S. divorce decree across international lines without a specific treaty is notoriously difficult, if not impossible. He exploited a known weakness in the global legal system. The lawyer would tell you that legally, he found a loophole. He used the law, or the absence of it, to his advantage. But then we must ask an ethicist, does can imply should? Just because he could legally get away with it, was it the right thing to do? The ethicist might argue that our legal obligations are just one part of a larger moral landscape. The marriage contract may have been broken, but does that sever all human decency towards someone you once loved and with whom you built a family? They might question whether retributive justice, making someone suffer as they made you suffer, is ever truly constructive. Vengeance might feel satisfying in the short term, but it often corrodes the person who seeks it and leaves a trail of destruction. This action didn't just punish his ex-wife. It had ripple effects, potentially impacting their children and their own relationships with each parent. This case forces us to weigh two competing ideas. On one hand, the principle of personal responsibility, the idea that betrayal has consequences. On the other, the societal principle that a long-term partnership involves shared assets and responsibilities, regardless of how it ends. He chose to prioritize his personal sense of justice over his court-ordered legal obligations. This brings us to our moral judgment to ponder. Does a profound personal betrayal, like infidelity, morally nullify all the societal and legal obligations of support that were built during a decades-long partnership? Does it justify any act of retaliation that falls within one's power, even if it leaves the other person financially ruined? Where is the line between righteous anger and disproportionate revenge? The line between justice and vengeance is rarely this stark. This story is a fascinating clash of cold logic, raw emotion, and deep moral ambiguity. If you find these kinds of dilemmas compelling, you need to be here at the Verdict Zone. We deliver verdicts on the stories where people take the law and morality into their own hands. Where do you draw the line? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more deep dives into these complex cases, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a verdict. Thanks for watching.